Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. Once again, this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Sam Kieth Day. It is Monday, so we are looking at issue 3 of Aliens Earth War, continuing on from issue 1 and 2, obviously. The cover's by John Bolton. It's a great piece of work, but not any kind of Sam Kieth stuff. So we are going to move on right away, crack this one open, and get to the Sam Kieth. So, Mark Verheiden is the writer, Sam Kieth is the artist, Pat Brosseau is the letterer, and Monica Livingston is the colorist. What's fun about these issues is I didn't actually buy these back in the day when they were coming out. I actually discovered Sam Kieth with Marvel Comics Presents and the Max. So to go back and look at these is great because I love looking at what I like to call proto art and proto to the period where I discovered them. So selfishly, most people, we tend to prefer the artists that we like, prefer the period where we discovered them. Right, so that is pretty common amongst the artists I like. Sam Kieth, Simon Bisley, Rob Liefeld, Tom McFarlane. You know, some of my favorite stuff from them is in and around that 2 to 3 year period where I began and intensely collected comics. So it's nice to go back and see how they got to that spot. And what you'll notice with a lot of them is that they tend to get, I want to say, dirtier and grittier and looser, right, in their art style. And not that we won't see examples of looseness here. Sam Kieth has already kind of shown those kind of tendencies, but I'll point them out as we move along. And something that I noticed with Sam Kieth when I was back in the day reading Marvel Comics Presents and the Max, and now looking through this, is he tends to kind of waver between levels of drawing. Now, what do I mean by that? There's the old school traditional kind of idea of illustration and how to do things properly and proper perspective and proper hatching and all that. And then, you'll have the new school, which may be a little bit more experimental, impressionistic, and, trying things and experimenting with textures and grit and being looser in your drawing rather than tighter and more academic, right? So I find that Sam Kieth kind of goes between both, and I saw examples of that in the Max, and I see examples of that here, where sometimes his style is very clean and illustrative, and other times it veers into cartoony and almost like childlike to a certain extent. So I'll try to point those out as I move along. Here's some good examples where he kind of mixes both. He's got fairly realistic representations of textures on the ship and stuff. Then when it gets to the contour, he just goes a little more expressionistic. Right down here, there's no clearly defined contour of the ship, right? Even like these shapes here seem kind of dynamic and quickly drawn. So he's kind of mixing both there. Where if you look at these panels here, all pretty kind of classic and academic and illustrative, right? Even the moon here. What's different though is his layout as well, and the panels he's using. There's not one rectangular panel here, all different and interesting shapes, thick borders, thin borders. So again, he's trying to use the page, design the page to make it interesting. And it's something I'd like to incorporate more in my artwork because I realize, all this negative space, not to be funny, but means less drawing, right? And this page, even with that, it doesn't make it any less interesting. Probably with the design he's got here, it makes it more interesting, right? So it's a clever way to draw some quick pages. Some more we talked about last Sam Kieth episode is interesting design layouts, right? I think he's someone who just doesn't like the rectangles, even though he does use them still, but tries to avoid using them. I like what he did here, where these two scenes that are depicted actually he zeroes in on the ship and shows you where those scenes are happening, right? You have like a small version of the scene within that, which I think is clever, and I don't see that much of. Occasionally when it's used, I think it's very cool. It's kind of based on diagrams, I would assume, right? And apart from the previous page with some rectangle panels, again we move back to the interesting layouts. This negative space thing, I think he probably on the first page decided, ooh, that's fun and works well. I could probably use it for many different page designs and get away with a bit more negative space and less drawing. The circular panels, right? Is this photo reference? This almost looks like not Goldie. What is her name? Deborah Harry, right? Like he looked at a picture of her. I could be wrong. More circular paneling. Odd shapes all around for the panels, but works. Now this is, I've talked about my love of double page spreads with insert panels, right? So you still get a bit of storytelling, so you don't feel like the artist is just kind of throwing a nice big pretty image at you because he was tired of drawing lots of small panels. Still got some of those there. They don't clutter up the image here, although maybe I would have had this one not overlap there, but that does create a sense of depth as well, and I guess reading direction. But I think this is a great illustration here. Again, high level of drawing when it comes to Sam Kieth here in the illustration and the hatching for the alien pods and the ship and everything. Love the interesting kind of layout. Leads the eye here, right? The interesting panel to bring more heightened drama, I guess, here. Like, this is what I mean about getting a little dirty and starting to have like dirty lines and unpretty lines or uneven lines, right? And then here's a panel where he kind of goes a little bit cartoony all of a sudden and quick. There was another example. Even this one here, I find there's a bit of that in there, right? So this is what I mean about the levels kind of changing. Although for some reason, there's just something about the way Sam Kieth does it that it works. It's endearing and it's fun. So here's another example where, you know, I just find his face is a bit cartoonier and hers is trying to be a little bit more realistic, excuse me, and illustrative. Obviously the exoskeletons, they're familiar from the Aliens movie, right? Here's a page where like it makes sense that you get lots of grit and dirt, right? They're on the alien turf, obviously, and we know from the movies, there's textures tend to be kind of gross and grody, so pretty sure that's what he's going here for here. We get more of those interesting textures down here. I mean, you know, if you know anything about aliens, there's a lot of based on genitalia and penises and vaginas and stuff, so probably not much of a surprise that this shape here is somewhat vaginal. And we get a glimpse of the alien by Sam Kieth. Again, I think he's really well suited to it, but we're not going to get many clear shots with all the texture and the body parts and the different limbs and stuff. So I find maybe for the fact that he's got a deadline, like even here, you know, not much texture on the arms. Feel like it could have been more detailed here, right? More interesting layouts, a quickly drawn panel here. So this is where like the art kind of drops off a bit as far as level of intricacy, I guess is how I'd put it. All of a sudden it gets very cartoony here, right? Same with the alien here. So we get a bit of backlit here, right? That's a good shot there with the silhouette, with the light reflection here. Love this panel, works really well. Even the way the colors work with it, I think that works pretty well. Here though, we're getting some of that grit again, right? And the cartooniness and the you know, the expressiveness of the movement of the ink and stuff, right? Obviously heightening the movement of the alien. And this would be a panel where I find like the art just, it's not bad, but just the level drops off a little bit compared to the other stuff. And it just sometimes goes up. Like this is a panel here where like, I appreciate the cartoony aspect, but maybe just the finish and stuff, how quickly this was drawn, not sure it's as effective as it could be. So now we got two aliens attacking them, right? They're in a bad spot. Again, here, I find when there's a whole body shot, Sam Kieth kind of veers towards the cartoony and avoids some of the more intricate textures and stuff the alien bodies are comprised of that I would maybe like to see more of, right? Like have this quality of texture over here on these figures here. I just find like he's kind of taking a few shortcuts here. But look at all the crazy layouts. Circle layout again. The way he just finishes the panel with like some brush strokes here, which is cool. I think that works really well here. And of course, eventually we're gonna have our heroine Ripley come face to face with the Queen, which is what happens here. This stuff here, again, we're talking about dirt and grit. I love all the textures, even down here, the kind of chiaroscuro, slightly Frank Miller-ish, you know, kind of look here to the shadows on the character. I think all this works really well. Even the alien self kind of, you know, blending back into the shadows. But this kind of mist, I guess, effect or white splatter on top, to me ruins the effect of that Queen Mother body, Alien Mother, fading off into the shadows, right? I feel that if we didn't have all this, right, in these spots here, it would work a lot better. And, you know, my only other suggestion would be to, you know, if you're going to do this, maybe, you know, not as dense as you have it here, like you have it here, and only in the black areas, and not have it overlap any of the actual alien, where that creates confusion, I think. So it's not, it bothers me here. It gets a little murky. Even though the colors overall, I think for the whole book, are pretty good. Just doesn't really work for me here. So a repeat of the classic scene, obviously, from the movie. Some more circular composition here from Sam Kieth. Sure is using that a lot. Some more interesting layouts. Love these kind of broken up borders he's doing here. That's always great. See, here's an example where the art kind of drops off into a very simple, clean line style that, you know, in a way is not at all reminiscent of Sam Kieth. I mean, it could still work within the confines of the narrative. It's not the end of the world. I still understand, and it's clear, and I know what's going on. I just feels like the level of drawing drops off a bit from something like this, where you see, you know, all the hatching and shadows and arm hair and all the textures. Really like this silhouette shot. I think that works really well with just a little bit of light here. That's a great shot. So using the silhouettes pretty much on every page. These are all silhouettes and very well done. This one, the reverse negative one here, the added color, but that's obviously white on the paper. I see what he's kind of going for here. This kind of tech contour sticking out. Not sure how effective it was, but he tried for something kind of fun and interesting. A little phallic. So see, here's an example where I think he succeeds with a lot of the alien textures when we get into these kinds of close-ups. But there's other shots where we're pretty close up and we don't get this level of detail and texture, right? I think with the alien and in describing the shapes and stuff, silhouettes are great, obviously, but if you're going to shed, you know, throw some light on them, you need to be defining all those different kind of grody and weird textures that they have. So if you look at this here, you get some of those textures, right? The tail, okay, the toes, but I feel like on the legs here, you know, especially here, this isn't bad. I really like kind of the ribs and stuff, and those tubes that come out, those are always cool. Just feel like there's more that could be done in and around these parts here, to really give it that icky alien texture that we're used to. Not a bad shot though. And you can see once again starting to get dirty. Got some more clean hatching lines on the actual body here. Then the shadow work here gets a little kind of more impressionistic, and then probably a bit of toothbrush ink thrown on top there. And we got a few ads that we've seen before, I think most of them. So there you have it. Another example of Sam Kieth working on Aliens Earth War. We got one more to go. After that, we'll be moving on to some Marvel Comics work from the old Mr. Kieth. Please like and subscribe if you like the kind of content that I'm presenting here. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope everyone out there has a great day.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.